What if I told you that maybe you've been praying the wrong way your whole life? That what you learned as sacred, repeated countless times in temples and churches, could be precisely what keeps you far from the true divine presence? This question is uncomfortable, I know. It breaks the comfort zone and challenges everything that seems right. But there are times when the soul needs to be shaken. Moments when the truth doesn't arrive like a whisper. It arrives like thunder. Over the centuries, profound teachings have been hidden, forgotten, or deliberately silenced. Mysteries buried under convenient doctrines. Words of power exchanged for empty formulas. How many have knelt down with a full heart and an empty soul, feeling that God wasn't listening to them? What if the problem isn't faith, but the way it has been shaped by systems that never wanted you to discover who you really are? There is something in the Bible, and outside of it, that speaks of a calling older than any religion. A call that does not need fancy words or repeated rituals. A call that comes from the monad, the divine spark that lives within you. Jesus knew this. He didn't just pray, he connected, in silence, in the desert, in the intimate. He taught about a kingdom that does not come with outward appearance. The kingdom of God is within you. These words are not metaphors. They are spiritual maps, and few dare follow them. But why was this forgotten? Who is interested in keeping you away from this direct, pure, living source? The Archons, the lords of spiritual control, detest everything that liberates. They love repetition without conscience, empty prayer, dogma without revelation. They feed on spiritual ignorance. And the more you repeat what you don't understand, the further you move away from the monad, the light, the living truth that burns at the center of your being. You feel it, don't you? This void that no liturgy fills. This thirst that not all preaching can satisfy. There is something beyond, something that screams for you between the lines of the verses, in the unexplained mysteries, in the interspersed revelations of ancient texts that institutionalized religion preferred to ignore. Not because they aren't true, but because they are dangerous. Dangerous for the system, but liberating for the spirit. In John 4, Jesus speaks to the Samaritan woman and says, "True worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth." It doesn't say in rituals and repetitions, it says spirit. And spirit is not forced. Spirit awakens. That's what the monad is. The part of you that is still intact, even after years of distortions, fear, guilt, and manipulation. It doesn't need permission to exist, she just needs to be heard. But to hear this voice, you will have to do something that few do. Silence the religious noise, and delve into the depths of your soul. What you will find inside will not be comfortable, but it will be true. This video is not for those who want easy answers. It is not for those who are afraid of losing their certainty. It is for those who feel that there is something beyond, something that traditional prayer never touched, something that pulses in the invisible and calls insistently for you. From now on, prepare yourself. What comes next is not just a teaching, it's a reunion, and in the end you may never pray the same way again. If, at some point in this beginning, something inside you began to stir, if words you had never heard before seemed in some way familiar, then you need to understand, this is not by chance. It's the monad, your spark, trying to manifest itself, trying to break through the barriers of the spiritual programming you've received throughout your life. And that's exactly why this space here, this video, needs to be more than just a message. It needs to be a meeting point between awakening souls. In the comments below, I want to invite you to do something different. Share your deepest spiritual questions, the ones you've never had the courage to say out loud. Talk about the great questions that keep you up at night, about the biblical passages that seem to contain more than what was taught, about unspiritual experiences that traditional religion called heresy, but that you felt were true. You can also leave it there as a kind of public confession, if any of your beliefs have been shaken by everything you've heard so far. There's no problem with that. On the contrary, sometimes it is only possible to build something true after the old system of certainties collapses. The transformation begins right there, in shock, in doubt, in discomfort. And if this initial reflection touched you in any way, if it made your heart race or your mind open even just a little, then click the like button. Not only because this helps the video reach more people, but because it is a symbolic gesture. It is like lighting a candle in the middle of the temple of the soul. Subscribe to the channel. And you are not yet part of that journey. Here, each video is a deep excavation, a dive into what has been hidden, a cry of truth in a world of echoes. If you feel like you need more than food for the mind, if you seek food for the spirit, then this space is yours too. And above all, reflect. Don't rush to the next distraction. Don't erase this call with more noise. Close your eyes, breathe, and ask yourself, what is trying to be born inside me now that I have started to see? Because this is just the beginning. Do you feel this too? This feeling of something being revealed, not by me, but within you. We are not here just to repeat old words or quote memorized verses. We are here to excavate together deep layers of faith, those that have never been shown to us. And maybe that's why you clicked on this video. Maybe something called you, something that you still don't know how to name, but that you recognized. Today you will hear about something that has been carefully silenced over the centuries, the calling of the monad, a deep, ancient, bold spiritual practice, and one that has been rejected not because it is false, but because it is too powerful for those who try to control the spirituality of others. This calling has nothing to do with ready-made formulas or automatically repeated prayers. He does not depend on temples built with stones, nor on religious titles. He is an echo of what Jesus practiced in the depths of his spirit. Yes, Jesus prayed. But have you ever noticed that in the most decisive moments he withdrew in silence? To lonely places, deserts, lonely mountains? He did not seek applause. He did not rely on human traditions. He immersed himself in an inner place where few people have the courage to go. And it was there, in the pure connection with the Father, that he was strengthened. This secret place, this silent dimension where spirit speaks to spirit. This is the call of the monad. Monad is an ancient word, forgotten by many, but which represents the original divine essence that dwells within you. We're not talking about a new idea or something too mystical to be taken seriously. We are talking about a truth that was already implicit when Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you." Do you understand the depth of this? What Jesus taught was not a religion, it was a reconnection, an activation of something that goes beyond doctrines, beyond human traditions, beyond what was allowed to be taught in the pulpits. The question that needs to be asked now is, why were these things hidden? Why does talking about this bother you so much? Why is it that when someone begins to awaken to what is within themselves, so many spiritual obstacles arise, so much criticism, so much resistance even within the religious community itself? The answer may be shocking. Because there is a force opposing awakening. It was the ancient Gnostics who warned about this, calling these forces Archons, spiritual beings that dwell in the intermediate layers of the invisible plane, manipulating thoughts, beliefs, and distorting the image of God to keep us prisoners of spiritual ignorance. Have you ever felt as if something wanted to stop you from praying sincerely? As if in moments of greatest search, a distraction appeared out of nowhere? This is not just psychological. There is a hidden system that does not want you to access your divine origin. And this system trembles before the awakened monad. The Archons hate it when someone discovers the inner path because it cannot be controlled. They can't reach you there. They cannot manipulate that which is born of the spirit in you. Therefore, they created a series of distractions, formulas, automatic rituals, fears, guilt, dogmas, intermediaries, everything so that you never discover how much it is possible to connect directly to the source. But Jesus already knew. He knew, and that's why he said that true faith is like a mustard seed, small but capable of moving mountains. And where does this grain grow? It is not in palaces nor in seminaries. It is in the desert of the soul, where only you and God are present. There, the monad begins to pulse. There, the spirit begins to teach. There, words are no longer memorized. They are born from the womb of silence. Maybe now you understand why so many people are spiritually tired. Why are there so many who attend temples but do not feel life? Why are there so many who know how to pray with words, but feel empty inside? Because the connection was diverted. Because the monad was forgotten. Because the Archons created a noise so loud that it drowned out the inner calling. But he's still there, still calls you. It still whispers between the lines of scripture. It still lives in little quoted verses in gospels left aside, in experiences you've had and that you may be afraid to share. This calling is older than any denomination and truer than any structure. And now that you're here, listening to this, a decision needs to be made. Are you going to silence that voice again? Or are you going to start listening to it with courage? You don't have to accept everything right away, not even understanding everything at once. But you need to recognize when the soul moves. And if it's moving now, don't ignore it. Stay with me. because what comes next will mess with what you thought praying was even more. It will touch the roots. It will tear off layers. It will free you. At the end of this video, I want you to leave your feelings so far in the comments. Tell me if something moved inside you. If so, write in the comments. I want to hear my monad. Write this as a spiritual seal, as an act of courage, and also as a sign that you are ready to go beyond the surface. If you've seen something similar, comment below. This exchange between sincere seekers is part of awakening, and if this message spoke to you, if it touched you in some way, sign up now, not just to receive more videos, but to walk with us on this journey of revelations that challenge what the traditional spiritual world taught. May this revelation lead you to seek the truth not in men but in God Himself. And perhaps now, with your mind and spirit open, the next question will begin to arise naturally. Why does prayer as we learned no longer seem to work? Why even as we cry out fast, repeat words of faith, is there something that remains empty, unattainable? The answer is harsh, but it needs to be said. Traditional prayer, as shaped by institutions, has become an often mechanical practice, a repetition without consciousness, a lifeless ritual. This is not just an opinion. It is a fact observed in the fruits we have harvested. How many times do we pray but hear nothing? How many times have we spoken to God but felt no response? Not because He isn't listening, but because our way of connecting has been distorted, disconnected from the essence of what it is to pray in spirit and in truth. The Bible speaks of this clearly. In Matthew 6:7, Jesus says, "And when you pray, do not use vain repetitions like the Gentiles who think that if they speak much, they will be heard." Do you understand? Jesus already warned about the futility of automatic prayer, recited like a magic formula, as if heaven were a safe that opens with passwords. But even so, what we see most today are memorized words, endless repetitions, empty screams, and silent hearts. Prayer has become an external ritual. It has strayed from its original purpose, to connect the human spirit with the Spirit of God. And when that happens, praying becomes a religious act, not a spiritual experience. The soul is silent while the mouth moves, and the scariest thing is that many don't even realize it. The problem is that we have been taught to pray on the outside, when the real transformation happens on the inside. We are told to repeat words that someone else wrote, when we should be listening to what the Spirit wants to say to our hearts. We have been conditioned to speak to God as if He were far away, sitting on a distant throne, when Scripture itself declares that He is closer than the air we breathe. This internal disconnection takes a high spiritual toll. It keeps us on the periphery of faith. It makes our spirituality depend on environments, times, objects, and people. But Jesus said that the true temple is not made by human hands. He spoke of an inner kingdom, a sacred place where the monad, the divine essence within us, silently cries out for reconnection. But why has this external model of prayer been reinforced for so long? Why did they insist so much on visible formulas and practices, while silent, deep, and authentic prayer was forgotten? This is where one of the darkest and least talked about mysteries in churches comes in: the action of the Archons in the human mind. They are the masters of distraction, confusion, and spiritual conformity. Invisible beings, mentioned in Gnostic texts and insinuated in passages such as Ephesians 6:12, where Paul warns, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age." These dominators are not just metaphors. They are spiritual consciousnesses that work behind the scenes of religiosity, creating structures that appear sacred, but that prevent human beings from directly accessing the source. They are masters at diverting attention. While you believe you are praying, you are often just repeating words without spiritual strength, feeding a system that feeds on your alienation, not your liberation. They would rather you talk to God without ever hearing His answer. May you pray with your lips but never with your heart. May you depend on leaders, on rituals, on temples, because then you will not awaken. Because mirror, when the monad awakens, it breaks the invisible chains that the Archons use to keep us submissive. Mechanical repetition is their greatest ally. It is the noise that drives away the silence where God speaks. It is the smoke that prevents the clear vision of the Spirit. That's why Jesus said, "When you pray, go into your room and, closing the door, pray in secret." But the room to which He refers is not just physical. It is God, the inner place where no external voice penetrates, where no appearance matters. where only you and God exist. And when you access that place, something happens. Something changes. Something breaks. Because there, the religious masks fall. The ego becomes silent and the spirit begins to speak clearly. But that only happens when you stop repeating and start listening. When you let go of control and surrender to the truth that is beyond form. It is not wrong to pray, but it is wrong to transform prayer into an empty automatic act, disconnected from the heart. It is wrong to pray expecting results as if God were an answer machine. It is wrong to pray and continue with a mind full of distractions, as if it were enough to fulfill a spiritual obligation. What we need is to unlearn to relearn. Return to the original state of faith. Abandon the formulas and immerse yourself in the Spirit, because it is in the Spirit that the monad vibrates. It is in the Spirit that the call resonates, and it is in the Spirit that the Father looks for worshipers. Have you ever felt, at some point, that you were praying, but it felt like you were talking to the wind? Have you ever experienced that strange silence, that uncomfortable emptiness, even after long moments of clamor? Don't blame yourself. This is not a lack of faith. This is often a sign that you are being called to something deeper, to a prayer that is born from the monad, that flows effortlessly, that happens even when you don't say a word. A living prayer, full of presence, of truth, of spirit. Maybe what you're missing is not more words, but more inner silence, more listening, less noise. Maybe you need to stop trying to reach for heaven and realize that heaven is already within you, that God doesn't ask you for beautiful words. He asks you for truth. And the truth is that the Archons are afraid of this. They are afraid that you will discover that our praying is not repeating. It is awakening, that crying is not shouting. It is feeling, that seeking God is not running to Him. It is recognizing that He never left within you. So if something starts to make sense now, if you feel like you are being called to a new level of intimacy with the divine, don't ignore it. Continue. Go deeper, because true prayer does not begin with words. It begins with a decision, the decision to listen to what the Spirit says to its monad. Now I want to know, have you ever experienced this? Have you ever felt that prayer, the way you were taught, seemed to push you away instead of bringing you closer? If so, comment below. Write, I want to awaken to true prayer. This not only helps the channel, but also encourages others who are going through the same process of spiritual awakening. And of course, if this message spoke to you, sign up now, because we still have a lot to reveal. And each video here is a spiritual key that can open doors that have been locked inside you for a long time. May this revelation lead you to seek the truth, not in men, but in God Himself. Have you ever seen something similar? Comment below. If this message spoke to you, sign up to receive more revelations like this. But if there is such a powerful force within you, capable of connecting you directly with the divine source, then an inevitable question arises. Why are so few able to access it? Why do we live so trapped in beliefs, fears, and limitations that seem to be beyond our control? The answer takes us to one of the most hidden and dangerous themes of ancient spirituality, the Archons. Little is said about them in modern religious traditions, and this is no coincidence. Archons are not just mythological creatures or symbolic inventions. They are real entities, described in ancient Gnostic texts, such as the Gospel of Thomas, the Apocryphon of John, and the writings of Nag Hammadi, discovered in Egypt in 1945. These texts, suppressed for centuries, reveal a disturbing truth. There are invisible spiritual forces that act directly on the human mind and emotions, with the sole objective of preventing the awakening of the monad, the divine spark that dwells within each person of us. In Gnostic writings, the Archons are described as emanators of falsehood, beings created by an inferior god, called Yaldabaoth, a false god who thinks he is the only creator, but who is actually disconnected from the true source. He is the archetype of spiritual deception, and the Archons are their ministers, manipulators of the astral plane, experts in sowing confusion, fear, distractions, and illusions. They operate through systems, religious, social, mental systems, more, and even sensory. They do not need to manifest physically, because they already inhabit the invisible structures that control human consciousness. And, as strange as it may seem, the Bible echoes this reality, albeit in a veiled way. In Ephesians 6:12, Paul clearly warns, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of this dark world, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." These rulers are the same archons mentioned in Gnostic texts, entities that influence thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and mainly the way we relate to the sacred. They are masters of distraction. They manipulate human thoughts like someone writing on a whiteboard. When you are about to meditate, to withdraw, to silence the world, to listen to the Spirit, suddenly a worry appears, a useless memory, an anxious thought. Have you been through this? Have you ever tried to focus on the spiritual and felt a strange weight, an inexplicable distraction, as if something was trying to pull you back to the surface? This is Archontian influence, and it is much more common than you might imagine. They hate silence. They hate it when you stop consuming and start contemplating. They fear the awakening of the monad because they know that an awakened soul is free, and a free soul can no longer be manipulated. Therefore, they invested millennia in building religious systems that appear profound, but that distance the person from true contact with the divine within. They created liturgies so rigid that the spirit can no longer breathe. They created spiritual hierarchies where few have a voice and many just repeat. They created fear, guilt, shame, condemnation, spiritual weapons that paralyze the monad and fuel the empire of the false god. In the canonical Gospels, Jesus constantly confronts the religious leaders of his time. He calls them whitewashed sepulchres, brood of vipers, blind guides. Why? Because they were instruments of the system, promoters of a faith that imprisoned, not freed. Jesus saw beyond the religious appearance. He saw the spiritual game behind the human game, and his mission was exactly this: to break with the Archon's dominion over the human soul. And how did he do this? With direct connection, with silence, with intimacy with the Father who is in secret, with words that cannot be learned in books, but are revealed in the Spirit. He taught that the Spirit blows where he wills, and that true worshipers will worship him in spirit and in truth. This was the call of the monad manifesting, and that's why Jesus was persecuted, because he didn't teach to repeat. He taught how to wake up. Today, the Archons still operate, and perhaps in a more subtle and sophisticated way than ever before. They no longer need to show themselves. They are behind constant distractions, modern addictions, the polarization of ideas, the constant fear of divine judgment. They are there when you believe you need to be perfect to connect with God. They are there when you feel like God is too far away. They are there when you feel unworthy of being heard. This is all spiritual control, and there is a clear reason why they hate the call of the monad so much, because it does not depend on anyone. It does not need rituals, sacred objects, right words, human leaders. It is simple, direct, and real. It is a return to the source. And where there is a return to the source, and there is a fall of the empire of false gods. When a person accesses the monad, they realize that they have never been separated from God. She understands that divine love does not need to be earned. It already is. That grace does not need to be earned. It has already been given. That the truth is not hidden in libraries. It is vibrating within the Spirit. And this, for the Archons, is unacceptable. They live on illusion, and the monad is light. Where there is light, shadows dissolve. Where there is truth, fear loses strength. Where there is spiritual awareness, the invisible shackles break. Now stop and think. How many times have you felt that there was something more, something beyond what you were taught? How many times have you felt that the presence of God was simpler, deeper, more intimate than what you were told? How many times have you thought you were wrong for feeling that way? Maybe you weren't wrong. Maybe you were just waking up. And if you are waking up, then you are no longer alone. Write here in the comments, "I am awakening from illusion." Write as an act of faith, like a spiritual manifesto, like a light in the middle of the invisible battlefield we face every day. Your confession could be the push others need to recognize what they are feeling too. And if this message spoke to you, sign up now, because we are still going to talk about the path that Jesus left, the spiritual codes hidden in the scriptures, and how to activate that divine spark that is there, inside you, waiting for the right moment to burn. May this revelation lead you to seek the truth not in men but in God himself. Have you ever seen something similar? Comment below. If this message spoke to you, sign up to receive more revelations like this. And now that we know who the Archons are and how they work to keep the human spirit asleep, it's time to look at what they fear most. The monad. This word may sound strange to many, but its essence is more familiar than you might think, because it doesn't come from outside. She is you, or rather, it's what you were before you were conditioned, hurt, shaped, and disconnected. The monad is your original, pure, immortal state, the divine spark placed within each human being even before the foundation of the world. So what exactly is this monad, and why is it so important for your spiritual awakening? The answer begins at the beginning of everything, at the spiritual origin of being. Before you had a body, before you had a story, before you had a name, you were a spiritual consciousness emanating from divine source. Emanated, not created. This is important, because everything created has a beginning, middle, and end. But that which emanates from the source carries eternity within itself. This divine spark, the monad, is your deepest identity. It is prior to the soul, prior to the spirit, prior to any earthly experience. She is the breath that God gave in the beginning, the invisible image and likeness, the eternal spark that burns in silence even when everything seems dark. And no matter how much you have lost yourself, no matter how much you have moved away, this monad is still there, intact, alive, waiting to be recognized. But to understand this, we need to make a distinction that is rarely taught clearly. What is the difference between soul, spirit, and monad? The soul is the part of you that feels, desires, remembers, suffers, and rejoices. It is the emotional and mental center. It is shaped by experiences, by traumas, by relationships. The soul can be hurt. It can split. It can become contaminated. It carries the marks of time and choices. That is why the Bible talks so many times about healing the soul, salvation of the soul, restoration of the soul. The spirit mire, on the other hand, is the highest portion of human consciousness. It is the inner antenna that seeks connection with the divine. The spirit perceives, discerns, senses. He seeks meaning, seeks light, seeks God. It is through the spirit that you pray, intuit, and have revelations. But the spirit can also weaken. It can go out. Paul himself writes, "Do not quench the spirit." The human spirit without spiritual food becomes inactive, almost dormant. The monad, it is different. It is what can never be corrupted. It is the pure essence. She is not afraid. It doesn't get lost. It doesn't contaminate itself. It just is. And your existence is proof that you are not just flesh, not just mind, not just soul. You are a living emanation of the invisible God. The monad is the eternal spark within you that, when awakened, shatters all illusion, destroys fear, dissolves lies, and reconnects you to source. And where is this in Scripture? In the canonical Gospels, this appears between the lines. But it is in the apocryphal Gospels and their texts taken from official circles of religious power that the theme of the monad begins to gain shape and depth. In the Gospel of Thomas, for example, Jesus says, "If what is in you is with you, it will save you. But if what is in you is not with you, it will destroy you." This is a clear reference to the monad, that which is within but needs to be awakened, aligned, activated. In the Gospel of Truth, attributed to the Gnostic tradition, we read, "Forgetfulness does not exist before the Father, although it arose because of him. What exists in it is knowledge, which was revealed so that forgetfulness could dissipate." In other words, what separates man from God is not sin in the moral sense, but the forgetfulness of who he is. And the monad is this eternal memory, which remains alive even when the mind forgets. These texts do not contradict the gospel. They expand it. They show that Jesus' work was not only external, of cross, death, and resurrection, but also an internal work of awakening the sleeping monad in each human being. That's why he spoke in parables, in riddles, because it's not just about listening, it's about remembering. And remembering the monad is remembering who you always were, even before you were born. Now you may be asking yourself, but if the monad is so powerful, why can't I feel it clearly? And that's a fair question. The answer is that throughout our lives, we have been conditioned to live disconnected from it. From an early age, our consciousness was projected outwards, to please, to conquer, to survive. We were taught to look for us in heights, in sacred places, in the words of others, and not within ourselves. The monad does not scream. It doesn't impose. She waits, in the silence, in stillness, and it begins to manifest when the soul calms down and the spirit aligns, when you start to silence the noise and listen to the depth, when prayer stops being an external act and becomes an inner fusion. There, the monad begins to shine, and with her, everything starts to change. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to start remembering, to be desired, really searching, because the monad does not respond to performance. It responds to truth. And this truth is simple, but it has been hidden for a long time. You are more than you were taught, more than they said, more than the world believes. Within you there is a divine spark capable of igniting eternity itself, and when you begin to recognize this, the invisible shackles that bind you begin to break. That's why the Archons fight so hard to keep it buried. Because a soul that awakens the monad no longer needs intermediaries. It no longer depends on systems, no longer fear judgment, no longer bow to religious oppression. She lives in freedom, in direct communion with the living God, in spirit and in truth. Do you feel this calling? That feeling that there is something deeper calling you? If so, it's the monad in you trying to wake up, trying to break through the shell of religion to take you to the essence of faith. And this is just the beginning. Now tell me in the comments, have you heard of the monad before? Have you ever felt something inside you that seemed bigger than words? Right below, my monad is awakening. Use this space to declare your journey, to put into words what your spirit is feeling. And if this message spoke to you, if something inside you started to vibrate differently, sign up now. Because in the next videos we will explore even more deeply the mysteries surrounding the true spiritual identity of the human being and how to live from this transformative essence. May this revelation lead you to seek the truth, not in men, but in God Himself. Have you ever seen something similar? Comment below. If this message spoke to you, sign up to receive more revelations like this. What if everything you've learned about Jesus is still just the surface? What if His words, His gestures, the silent retreats, and the moments of deep contemplation revealed a teaching much more intimate, much more daring, and deeply connected to the monad? What few people know and or prefer not to say, Amen, is that Jesus did not speak everything openly to the crowds. The Gospels themselves tell us that He revealed the secrets of the kingdom only to His closest disciples, in private, away from the eyes of religious institutions. In Luke 17:21, Jesus declares, "The kingdom of God does not come with outward appearance, because the kingdom of God is within you." This statement, which many read without paying attention, carries one of the most important keys to the entire mission of Christ. He was saying in all words that the divine source is not outside but inside the human being, that it is not necessary to chase signs in the sky, nor imposing buildings. The sacred is already present, embedded inside whoever opens up to perceive it. This is the monad. Throughout Jesus' ministry, we see a pattern repeating itself. He constantly withdrew from the crowds to pray in deserted places, lonely hills, silent gardens. Why did the Son of God, who had all power and authority, feel this need for silence and solitude? Because He understood that true connection doesn't happen in the noise of religion, but in the whisper of the monad. Jesus did not need to repeat prayers. He did not make ritualistic speeches before God. He withdrew. He was silent. He entered the secret place. And when He came back from those moments, He came back with authority, with clarity, with light. This shows us that spiritual power does not come from quantity of words. It comes from the quality of connection. And the monad is this portal of direct access to the Father. Jesus' prayer was different. She was alive. It was intimate. She was contemplative. When His disciples asked, "Lord, teach us to pray," He did not give them a complex rite. He gave them a simple, direct model, but at the same time full of spiritual layers. In the Our Father, each sentence carries depth, but the most interesting thing is what comes before the prayer. You, however, when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is in secret. Matthew 6:6. Here, Jesus reveals the secret. True prayer does not happen in front of others. It happens hidden, inside, in the Spirit. And the bedroom is not just a room in the house. It represents on the interiority of the soul, the hidden temple within and you, the place where the monad lives. When you close the door and go in there, the Archons cannot enter. There are no masks there. There are no distractions. There, the monad whispers the name of God, not the name that men teach, but that which can only be recognized in the sacred silence of the Spirit. In the apocryphal Gospels, these truths become even more evident. In the Gospel of Thomas, and Jesus says, "If they ask you where you came from, answer, 'We come from the light, from the place where the light arose by itself.'" This is a clear reference to the monadic origin of the soul, a place prior to birth, prior to matter, prior to time. It is from this light that we come, and to that light we are called to return. Jesus knew that institutionalized religion would not support this type of teaching, because it needs control, hierarchy, intermediation. But the call of the monad nullifies all this. He places every human being before God without filters, without walls, without titles. That's why he was so dangerous to the system. For this reason, he was persecuted by the teachers of the law, because he taught that the kingdom was not in the sacred scrolls but in the awakened heart. When Jesus withdrew into the wilderness for 40 days, it wasn't just a time of trial, it was a return to original silence. He was reconnecting with the monad before beginning his mission. He knew that in order to face the system, he needed to be firmly anchored in the source. And the monad is this spiritual foundation that does not waver. There is no doubt there. There are no masks there. There is only truth, light, and eternal identity. During the Mount of Transfiguration, before Peter, James, and John, Jesus' face shone like the sun. His clothes became white as light. What happened there was not just a miracle. It was the monad overflowing into the visible world. It was the divine spark achieving such alignment that it surpassed the limits of the flesh. And all of this is recorded so that we understand. This call was not just for him, it was for everyone. Do you feel this calling? Not the call for more rituals, not the call for more rules, but the call to inner silence where the Spirit testifies with your spirit that you are a child of God? Because that is what Jesus came to remind us of, that we are children, not servants, that we have access, not just an audience, that we can listen, not just repeat. And perhaps now you understand why Jesus' closest disciples became spiritual revolutionaries, because they heard things that others did not. They saw the eyes of Jesus during the silent moments. They felt the living presence of the one who spoke not just with words, but with spirit. And that's what's available to you now. The same call, the same monad, the same light. Write in the comments, "I want to know the Christ who prays in silence." Declare this not just as a sentence, but as a spiritual response, like a step towards something real, pure, transformative. And if this message spoke to you, sign up now, because there's so much more coming. We will still talk about the power of silence, the spiritual activation of the monad, and how Jesus left clues for those who wish to rediscover their true origin. May this revelation lead you to seek the truth, not in men, but in God Himself. Have you ever seen something similar? Comment below. If this message spoke to you, sign up to receive more revelations like this. Now that you understand the depth of what Jesus practiced in secret, and have had contact with the concept of the monad as a divine spark that dwells within you, perhaps the strongest question in your heart is, how can I access this? How do you respond to this intimate and at the same time mysterious call? How do you experience this direct connection with the divine, without intermediaries, without formulas, without fear? The first thing you need to know is that the monad call is not a technique. It is not a mystical practice that requires complex rituals, difficult words, or specific postures. It is simple, but deep. And like everything sacred, it requires intention, surrender, and truth. Don't expect a manual. Real spirituality is not taught with numbered steps. It is transmitted with vibration. What I can offer you now is a map, but you are the one who follows the path. And this map begins with a single key: silence. But I'm not just talking about external silence. It's not just turning off your cell phone, leaving a noisy environment, or staying in a quiet place. It's inner silence, the silence of the soul, the silence of the mind that runs endlessly, full of voices, thoughts, judgments, anxiety, fear. The monad does not shout to be heard. She whispers in the space between one thought and another. And to hear her, you need to slow down, close your eyes, breathe, and allow the whole world to stand aside for a few moments. Don't expect something to happen immediately. This calling is not about spectacle, but about presence. You will feel, little by little, that there is something inside you that has always been there, like a flame that never went out, was only hidden under the ashes of rush, pain, and guilt. The second key is connection to the inner source. To do this, you don't need to imagine a distant God sitting on some unreachable celestial throne. Remember what Jesus said, "The kingdom is within you." The source, the all, the Father, he dwells within you, not in the form of doctrine, but in the form of a living essence. The monad is this silent portal where you find the presence without the need for words. When you close your eyes and begin to breathe consciously, imagine that you are entering a place within yourself that is untouchable, inviolable, sacred. Visualize this place as a space of golden light or as a soft flame in the center of your chest. It doesn't matter what symbol you use. The important thing is to feel that there is a living, loving, and eternal intelligence there, which knows you better than any religion. This is the meeting point between your humanity and your divinity. And in this place, you are not the one speaking. It's you who listens. You don't cry, you listen, because the call of the monad does not begin when you seek. It starts when you silence, when you stop asking, explaining, justifying, when you simply are. And there, without anyone seeing, the spirit begins to blow. The third key is visualization and the feeling of oneness with the all. This is more than imagining. It is realizing in a profound way that you are not separate from Source, that you are not seeking God. You are returning to Him, like a thread of light that reconnects to the original light, like a drop that is recognized in the ocean. At this point, your story doesn't matter. Your mistakes, your doubts, your scars don't matter. The monad does not judge. She recognizes it. She remembers. And when you feel that union, even for a few seconds, everything begins to change. The way you pray changes. The way you see life changes. The way you deal with suffering changes. Because now, you know you are not alone. Never been. You start to notice signs. Words that once seemed common now vibrate differently. Verses that were once just texts are now revelations. Situations that used to unbalance you now become invitations to go deeper. And all of this happens, Rally, because the monad awakens a new center of consciousness within you. A center that does not react with fear, but responds with wisdom. That does not seek outside, but recognizes within. This process is not immediate. It's a journey. But each time you enter into silence, each time you allow yourself to simply exist before the presence, you feed that connection. And over time, you realize that the true miracle is not changing the world around you, but remembering who you are in it. And that remembering comes from the monad. It comes from the spirit. It comes from the source. You don't need to do this for hours. Sometimes a few minutes of real silence, of sincere listening, are enough for something to start happening. And the more you practice, the more sensitive you become. The more you recognize the voice of the spirit among the voices of the world. The more you notice God's presence in the little things, in the wind, in someone's eyes, in a simple word, in an unexpected pause. And then, prayer makes sense again, but not like before. Now it is not a request. It's a reunion. It's not an attempt to convince God to act. It's a response to what He is already doing inside you. This is the call of the monad, a return, an awakening, a living memory, not of a religion, but of a communion. If, as you listened to me now, something began to quiet within you, if you felt this silent presence gently touching your soul, write in the comments, "My monad heard the call." Write it as a sign, like a delivery, as a spiritual landmark. And if this message spoke to you in some way, if it gave you peace, if it touched you, if it reminded you of something that seemed lost, subscribe to the channel, because there are many more revelations coming. Let's explore together what lies beyond the surface of faith and delve into what really transforms. May this revelation lead you to seek the truth, not in men, but in God Himself. Have you ever seen something similar? Comment below. If this message spoke to you, sign up to receive more revelations like this. And now that you begin to understand the power of the call of the monad, this direct, silent, and sacred connection with the source, it is natural that a very important question arises. Why is this type of practice so ignored, suppressed, even opposed by traditional religious structures? Why is there so much effort to keep people tied to external forms of spirituality, and so little incentive for them to delve into their own divine essence? The answer lies in the darkest layers of spiritual control, because the truth is that the Archons hate this practice. They fear her. They fight it with everything they have. And the reason is simple. It frees. When a soul begins to awaken its monad, it breaks out of the cycle of manipulation that keeps humanity in spiritual captivity. This cycle is fueled by fear, guilt, dependence, and ignorance. It is a system that makes people believe that they are always indebted to the divine, always wrong, always small, and that only through intermediaries, rituals, or human institutions can they get closer to God. But the monad destroys all that. It reveals that you were never separated from the source, that you don't need to beg for divine love. May the Spirit dwell in you from the beginning. That access to the sacred does not depend on religious titles or magical formulas. This is deeply dangerous for the Archontian system, because the soul that remembers its origin becomes uncontrollable. Archons are entities that feed on illusion. They ought to exist within mental and emotional structures that have been carefully planted in humanity over millennia. They are masters of distraction and confusion. They operate through doctrines that are repeated without transformation. They are the masters of the purity rules that crush conscience, of the structures that place man always below, always unworthy, always in need of forgiveness, when in truth, God's love is absolute and eternal. They created a system where true spiritual connection was replaced by performance, where the silence of the monad was drowned out by external voices, where freedom of the spirit was exchanged for blind obedience. And so they kept millions of people trapped in a religion that seems true, but that denies the inner power of the human being. Have you ever wondered why so many spiritual leaders are afraid to talk about deep introspection? Why is there an embarrassing silence in churches about Gnostic texts, about the apocryphal Gospels, about the most ancient mysteries of faith? Because all of this points to a single destination, the liberation of consciousness. And when consciousness awakens, everything changes. You start to see the world with different eyes. Realize that many of the chains that held you were in your mind. That many of the voices that said you can't, you're not worthy, or you don't know, were Archontian voices dressed up as doctrine. The calling of the monad is the activation of true spiritual consciousness. It is when you stop living as a fearful servant and start living as an awakened son, not an arrogant son, but a conscious son, aware that the Spirit of God lives in you, aware that your soul has value, aware that you can hear the Father in the silence of your own heart. This consciousness is dangerous to the Archons because it cannot be dominated. It does not need permission to exist. She does not bow down to fear, nor is she confused by spiritual threats. She knows who she is, and knowing, she frees herself. And with liberation comes independence from the external religious structure. This does not mean abandoning faith, much less rejecting the scriptures. On the contrary, it means returning to the essence of faith, to what it was before it was institutionalized, before it was used as an instrument of control. Jesus himself was the greatest example of this. He did not found a religion, he founded a path of direct reconnection with the Father, a path where the poor in spirit were exalted, where the simple were revealed, where those who searched with the heart found, without needing to go through religious castes, without needing to deserve divine love. This is the way of the monad, and this is the path that the Archons tried to erase from history. But the truth cannot be buried forever. She comes back, she resurfaces, she calls, and it's calling now, inside you. If you've come this far and felt something moving inside you, a warmth in your chest, an old memory, a desire to silence the world to hear something that doesn't yet have a name, then the monad has already started to respond. And the Archons, they know this. That's why they will try to distract you, make you doubt, make you forget. But you can choose not to forget. You can write here in the comments, I will not disconnect. Say this with faith, firmly, with spiritual authority. Show that you know what's going on, that you understand the game, that you are ready to break out of the cycle. And if this message touched you, subscribe to the channel now, because we will still expose much more about how the Archons operate, how religious systems were used to silence the spirit, and above all how the monad can be reactivated to transform your entire life. What and this revelation leads you to seek the truth, not in men, but in God Himself. Have you ever seen something similar? Comment below. If this message spoke to you, sign up to receive more revelations like this. And now, take a deep breath. Close your eyes for a second. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what's around you. Just for a moment, silence everything. Because what I'm going to ask you now is not about religion. It's not about doctrine, not about right or wrong. It's about you, about what vibrates in the deepest part of your being. The question is simple, but it carries an eternal weight. Will you continue to pray as always, or will you respond to the call of the monad that Jesus knew so well? This is not just a question to make you emotional. It's an invitation to the most intimate spiritual decision anyone can make. Will you continue relating to God the way you were taught, even if everything is dry inside? Or will you dare to enter this secret, silent place where there is no script, only truth? Spiritual life cannot be lived automatically. It cannot be inherited. She needs to be awakened, and no one can make that decision for you. Neither pastor, nor priest, nor spiritual leader, nor father, nor mother. Only you can say, "That's enough. I want more." And this more is not fame. It is not an external blessing. It is not religious status. It's more awareness, more real presence, more truth within yourself. It's when you feel like you're tired of repeating words that no longer cross you, tired of looking outside for what is already inside, tired of waiting for something that has been breathed into you since before the womb. Jesus knew. He knew that most would prefer the safety of repetitions. He knew that institutional faith would be more comfortable, more predictable, more acceptable, but He did not come to offer comfort. He came down to call those who have the courage to look within and rediscover the spark that the Father left there, the monad, to guide their steps in the midst of darkness. And now, that voice that Jesus heard in the desert, that spoke to Him on the mountain, that whispered in the silence of Gethsemane, that voice can also speak to you, but she's not outside. It doesn't come from me, not even books. It comes from within. Do you feel this? Do you feel like something is trying to break inside? As if a forgotten part of your soul was shouting softly, "Listen to me, see me, let me come back." This is the call of the monad. It is the Spirit of God wanting more than memorized prayers. Delivery required, true, presence. So now it's up to you, not based on fear, but based on the real longing for reconnection. Will you keep moving away from what you feel inside? Are you going to ignore this spark that has started to light up? Will you treat this video as just another spiritual curiosity? Or will you allow it to become a turning point in your journey with God? God is calling you to a relationship without veils, no empty repetitions, without fear. He wants to teach you as He taught Jesus, in the silence, in the deep, in the intimate, in the invisible that transforms the visible. Right here in the comments, I respond to the call. Write with truth, with conviction, as if you were nailing this decision into the ground of your spirit, because that sentence could be the seed of a completely different life. And if this message came to you as an answer to prayer, as a breath of God in your soul, then subscribe now, not to follow a channel, but to follow this journey that has no end, but has meaning. May this revelation lead you to seek the truth not in men, but in God Himself. Have you ever seen something similar? Comment below. If this message spoke to you, sign up to receive more revelations like this. So now that you've come this far, after everything you've heard, felt, and remembered, it's impossible to return to the previous state, because the soul, when it's touched by a revelation, can no longer pretend that it didn't hear it. The monad, once awakened, begins to emit a vibration that goes through its entire structure of beliefs, fears, limited certainties. And it is at this exact point that many give up. But this is also where those who have been called remain. You may be feeling something different now, a new silence, a calm fire, a desire to dive deeper, to seek more, to understand what religion has never fully explained. And that is the beginning of liberation. Not liberation from external rules, but from inner imprisonments. Because it was inside that everything began, and it is inside that everything will be restored. So, if this revelation has touched your spirit, if some dormant part within you seems to be waking up, comment below with faith and true intention. I want to awaken my monad. Don't write on impulse. Write it as a choice, like a spiritual seal, as a calling that you are answering. And know, Every time someone declares this, a new frequency activates. And other people, when they read what you wrote, will also feel something. They will identify themselves. They will remember. If you know someone who lives repeating prayers but feels dry inside, someone who is hungry for something deeper, share this video with them, not because you want to convince them of something, but because this content could be the seed of their awakening. The Archon system only continues to operate because silence still dominates many consciousnesses. But every video like this, every awakening word, is a crack in this invisible system, a crack where light enters. And if you want to continue on this journey with me, if you want to explore the mysteries that have been erased, the truths that have been hidden, then subscribe right now. Not to follow a content creator, but to walk side by side with other seekers who are also saying, no more surface. I want depth, because in the next video, we will descend even further into the spiritual layers of forgotten truth. We will reveal how the fallen angels, yes they, tried to erase this secret of the monad from human history, and why they continue to this day to do everything in their power to prevent you from discovering who you really are. This next step will not be light, but it will be liberating, and only those whose spirit is burning with truth will continue. If this message touched you, sign up now. Activate the bell, because what comes will not be announced by the media, nor taught from pulpits. It will be revealed directly in your spirit, as it always should have been. May this revelation lead you to seek the truth, not in men, but in God Himself. Have you ever seen something similar? Comment below. And if this message spoke to you, sign up to receive more revelations like this.